8th edition is out, so it's time to update the tactical subroutines. Hello and welcome to another Zach Carnage video. With the recent release of the 8th edition rule set, it seemed like the right time to update some old videos. If you want to stay up to date with the Zach Carnage channel, then make sure to subscribe and use the bell button to receive notifications about each new upload. Like what you're seeing? Then be sure to smack the like button. NECRON kits have always provided players with lasting choices that have to be made early on. Right from the start when you get this kit, you'll need to know if you want to build Lychguard or Praetorians. That's if you want the standard GW look, but with some magnetization, you can create something in between so that all of your options are there. There's an excellent tutorial already up by Beer on this, and I have my own tutorial for basic magnetization if you're interested. Links will be in the description or maybe in card form. But if you don't have magnets available or want the classic look, you'll need to know which one you want to build. This video, along with the upcoming Deathmarks vs Immortals video, will help you to determine what kind of units you want to build for your army. So, let's get into this. The Triarch Praetorians are the ultimate upholders of the NECRON traditions, and defenders of the Silent King. Their duty is to enforce the will of the Triarch, and in this sense they are somewhat of an unusual NECRON class. Not tied to any particular dynasty, the golden-plated Praetorians instead travel between the different tomb worlds, uniting NECRON leadership under a single focus. Where Praetorians defend the ideology of the NECRON race, Lychguard defend their physical forms. These once great warriors protect the tombs of sleeping lords and overlords until their eventual rise. Masters of close quarters combat, the Lychguard are durable and devastating opponents. These chrome-coloured combatants take on the role of bodyguard to the leading classes. Here you can see the basic stats for Praetorians and Lychguard in 8th edition. There's almost nothing in it stat-wise, just the movement and a few special features that each has. So the Praetorians get a special rule called Unshakable Purpose, which makes them automatically pass morale tests. Ideally, every NECRON unit would have this, but I guess the Praetorians are the only really fearless unit in the army. Praetorians also get Fly thanks to their gravity displacement packs, which allows them to travel the board a little bit quicker, a bit more efficiently, and it means that you get that shooting when you fall back, of course. Lychguard gets stuck with the kind of bog-standard NECRON movement of 5 inches, but unlike their fearless flying counterparts, they actually get the Dynasty special rule, which can be very important for making rolls. Lychguard also get a bodyguard effect through their Guardian protocols, which allows them to save your character's wounds in exchange for taking a mortal wound themselves. Compared to older editions, right away you can see that it'll be easier to take on skilled opponents in close combat with the new weapon skill system, and initiative has of course been taken out of the game, so that's one of my personal favourite changes to the rules. Praetorians wield Rods of the Covenant, or Void Blades and Particle Casters combined, whereas Lychguard are armed with War Scythes, or Hyperface Swords and Dispersion Shields. So we're going to talk a little bit about bubbles now. Previously when I've done these videos, I've talked about being able to reach certain objectives, or enemies more rapidly with greater movement, but always in a fairly rough manner and without giving significant details. This time we're going to break down what I call the bubbles. So there's the bubble of influence, the bubble of fire, and the bubble of carnage. The bubble of influence is all about objectives. It's how much of the table the model can cover in order to pass points of interest, to break lines, or to occupy positions. So let's start off by looking at the bubble of influence for the Praetorians. With 10 inches of movement, the Praetorians have a fairly strong reach, covering about 314 square inches, which is 2.2 square feet of table. If they're just trying to reach an empty point of the table, then they'll be able to advance as they trek the battlefield. On average, an advance gives you 3.5 inches of extra movement, so that bubble extends to 573 square inches, or 4 square feet. The reach of your units rises drastically with advancing, due to the radius squared component of circular area. So, that means that Praetorians can influence about 17% of the board in a single turn. That's just getting to places and not really doing anything in particular there. Although, technically, because they are armed with assault weapons, if you take the Rods of the Covenant, you will be able to shoot as well. Just note here that we're assuming a standard 6x4 table when we talk about the percentage of how much of the board the unit can influence. That's quite a lot of numbers, so what does it all really mean? A standard unit of Praetorians can reach objectives across 17% of the board. So you can try to use this to your advantage by storming strongholds, gaining objectives at the other end of the board in last-ditch movements, or you can use your movement to force your opponent into awkward situations and different spreads that maybe allow you to shoot them a little bit more efficiently. So the second bubble is the bubble of fire. It's pretty simple. It's just how much of the table your models can actually shoot at. Both of the weapon options for Praetorians have a range of 12 inches, so we'll do them both at once. And if you take into account movement and shooting, but drop out advancing for now, then that's a total area of 1,521 square inches, or about 10.6 square feet, so 44% of the table. We could include advancing, but we're going to skip over that. And we're not going to talk about the effects of having multiple models per unit so much. That increases your available area a little bit, but it's not something that we're going to focus on too much in this video because we want to talk about it model per model. As for the bubble of carnage, this covers where your unit can assault, so we'll assume you're going for maximum damage, opting to move, blast the enemy full of shots, and then charge into the melee. With an average charge roll of 7 inches, this puts your bubble of carnage at 908 square inches, or 6.3 square feet, which is just over 25% of the tabletop. As Praetorians have the fly special rule, it's fine to assume that they can comfortably inflict damage to all key areas of the tabletop over the course of the game. It seems really crazy just how far the Praetorians can reach when you check the numbers, and in the past they could move even further because of course they had that 12-inch movement. If you want to include the fact that there are actually 5 models per unit, then it does increase the area even more. Of course, you can only go in one direction, so you can't think that they're going to cover forwards and backwards at the same time. Now, the main purpose of these calculations is to establish a sort of comparison between Praetorians and Lychguard. So, of course, we'll need to do all of the numbers for Lychguard as well. As they can only be armed with close combat weapons, there's not really much point talking about the bubble of fire, so we'll just talk about bubbles of influence and carnage. The bubble of influence has an area of 227 square inches for the Lychguard, which means you're covering about 7% of the table. As for assaulting, the Lychguard can extend their bubble of carnage to 452 square inches, or about 13%. That's quite a significant amount considering that you want to be able to access 100% of the board if possible during the game, and from one model alone you're going to do 13% per turn, which is very, very reasonable for a model that can boast a 4+ invulnerable save. Unfortunately, the Lychguard are heavily outclassed in the movement sector, with bubbles that are 2 or 3 times smaller than those of the Praetorian counterparts. With this information in mind, we can better consider the roles of these units. So quite clearly, Praetorians are designed for pushing towards key areas, while Lychguard should focus more on eliminating enemies in a smaller focus. Lychguard should be deployed fairly close to the areas where they're needed. They'll be unlikely to be able to cover the whole board in the game. Alternatively, you can put your Lychguard into a Night Scythe and beam them down. The transport will allow you to reach enemies much more quickly, so you can deal some serious damage, but of course this option does tote a hefty cost of 174 points per Knight Scythe. The killing capability of these units is one of the most important features, and something that you've definitely seen if you've watched my previous videos. After all, you need to actually kill your enemy units once you reach them. Just like my last video comparison of these units, we'll be seeing how they match up against Space Marines. Additionally, as elite unit killers, we'll want to see how much damage they can do to terminators, so we'll do that as well. So we'll start off by assuming that our 5-person, or 5-model Praetorian unit, armed with Rods of the Covenant, has located a 5-man tactical marine squad. The kill command is passed down from the overriding lord of the group, and they rush the opponent, shooting their staffs and clashing blades with the foe. First comes the barrage of well-aimed emerald fire. 1.9 marines are vaporized by the devastating blasts. On the way in, the enemy elects to overwatch our unit. Now, in the case of Space Marines shooting at Praetorians, this has a very small chance of killing a Praetorian, so we're going to assume that the dice gods are on our side today, or at least on the side of probability, whether that really means with us or against us. No Praetorians will be killed charging into combat, and the result is an average total of 5.6 wounds from the Necron shots and Necrodermis crushing bone. This number of kills is pretty significant. Praetorians are clearly well matched against your bog standard Marines, as reflected by points costs. In following turns, if they can maintain proximity to larger Marine units, so say you go up against a 10-man Marine unit, then you'll be able to do another 3.7 wounds every turn, provided that, of course, your Praetorians live. But you do have We'll Be Back, or reanimation protocols, so that will keep you in the fight a little bit longer. So that was with the Rods of the Covenant. Let's switch them out for the Particle Casters and Void Blades. The weapon choice was often prioritized in older editions thanks to Entropic Strike, but that's now gone, and we've got slightly different rules, so since the game has shifted, how does this combination fare out? In your shooting phase, you'll need to inflict, you will inflict 0.74 wounds instead of the 1.9 Marine kills. The difference between this and the Rods of the Covenant just shows how important that AP -3 really is. Next, the Void Blades come into action and your total kill count rises to 4.4. That's pretty good, mainly because Void Blades and Rods of the Covenant are very similar in close combat stats. Not too shabby compared to the standard Praetorian equipment set, and the Particle Casters are pistols, so you won't have to temporarily disengage if you want to maintain your kills each turn, and that's something that you would need to do in order to shoot your Rods of the Covenant in future turns, of course. So with the best weapon set, you're killing 5.6 Marines per in the first turn where you charge, but what about if you field Lychguard instead? So no shooting attacks for this unit, just hurl Metallic Limb, Claw and Blade into battle. Equip them with War Scythes for maximum damage. This will do about 8.9 kills per turn, so about 9. Or you can take the points hit, gear up with the Hyperphase Swords and Dispersion Shields. Your kills will be cut down to 3.7 per turn, which is in line with the Praetorians, but you will receive the 4+ Invulnerable save to keep them around a little bit longer. With the kills in mind, the War Scythe Lychguard are currently doing better versus simple tactical Marines. Their minds too lethargic, bogged down by their flesh and blood, these Cretans will be readily slaughtered by the mighty elite of the Silent King. But what if Space Marines are a little more capable? What if we kit them out with something like Terminator armor in order to make them stronger and take more hits than before? The Praetorians blast their weapons as they approach the Marine position. 1.5 Terminators are killed, if you can kill half a Terminator, and as Terminators are typically armed with Storm Bolters and Power Fists, we're going to have them shooting at our Praetorians in retaliation. Their shots attempt to tear apart the Praetorian bones and wires, but ultimately the result is something of a failure, so the Praetorians are going to make it through with less than a single wound of damage done to them. The remaining Praetorians, which is all of them minus a little bit, charge headlong into the human scum. staffs glowing with wicked lightning. 3 more Marines will fall to their blades, and their bulky armor absorbs a fair amount of damage, so you've killed 4.5 Terminator Marines there. The jump from standard Marines to Terminators is kind of large, but of course that is due to the mechanical advances granted by the Terminator armor. It's a true testament to the Emperor's will that his Marines can survive such an onslaught. But of course his will and this armor is not enough, as the loss of 4.5 human lives brings the Necrons ever closer to their galactic purge. Rewind time, and now the Praetorians charge in wielding pistols and blades. 0.37 Marines fall to shooting, so basically none. And after weathering the Overwatch, the remaining immortal Guardians tear open the enemy, causing 3 more of the human menace to fall. So the drop on kill count here is significant from standard Marines to Termies, but it is what you would expect. What really matters is that the Praetorians have successfully managed to reduce the human population. From these results, we can see that the standard weapon choice grants the most punch to your robotic combatants. Be sure to use these in the future if you want the maximum killing power, or choose the one you like the look of best. I think the Rose of the Covenant look the best, to be honest, so I'll be quite happy with my kills. How did the Lychguard fare against the humans' well-armed interference? Well, if you're running the war sides, you can expect losses of less than 1 Lychguard via the Stormbolter's Fierce Barrage, just the same as if you were running the Praetorians. If you're still wondering about that number, it's about 37% of a Lychguard that gets blown apart, so you don't have to worry too much. Once they get in close, the added strength allows the Lychguard to do some significant damage, so you're going to do 7.4 wounds to a 5 Marine unit, so that's kind of all dead now. You can bet that at least one of the Marines had his head cleaved straight off. What about the player standard choice of the Hyperphase Swords and Dispersion Shields, something that's been favoured over the past few years? First of all, that's some extra protection against any power fists that are going to be used against you in following turns, if the enemy does survive. Your strength and AP is dropped a bit to be in line with the Praetorians, so you're only going to inflict 3 wounds with this choice of weapon. But you do get that extra survivability. If we decide to rate our units based on kills per point to try and maximize efficiency, we're going to see that the Lychguard with Warsides come out on top very easily, so you win this round, Tomb Keepers. Praetorians aren't the most survivable unit in the game. In fact, they're notoriously fragile. In my first game using them after their release, I risked moving into a crater and I lost half of my unit to crashes and kind of being bogged down. With the updated rules, these Golden Warriors have 2 wounds, so thanks a lot Games Workshop. This means that you'll be able to keep them in play a lot longer, and they can better justify the hefty points value. Reanimation protocols does help out too. Lychguard, however, have always been as a durable and exploitable unit. Perfect for bodyguard duty. This idea hasn't changed in the slightest, now with 2 wounds, toughness 5, and the usual 3+ that both Lychguard and Praetorians use to weather the storm. Pay cash up front to grab yourself the Dispersion Shields for the 4++, if you want some extra defense. We've seen the chances of killing Marines with these units, but what about being killed by Marines ourselves? In an attempt to give a kind of survivability rating to these units, I tried to find out how many points a Marine player would have to spend to get an above 90% chance of killing them. To kill Praetorians, the cheapest option I found was a pair of Tactical Marine Sergeants. That's 13 points each, wielding power swords and plasma pistols. This gives a 10 out of 9 chance of killing a Praetorian at the cost of 48 points. Not too bad. Your opponent is spending 1.4 points for each of yours. But what about using Lychguard? If they got war sides, then it's the same as with the Praetorians. All the relevant stats are identical. Bring out the shields again, and the Marines will need to invest in an additional 4 Marines for your 1 Necron model. That's a total of 100 points. Now, you might think that this is a bit high, and to be honest, there is probably a cheaper option. I tried asking the Facebook group, Warhammer 40,000, but unfortunately most of the responses I got were jokes or claims that I was a power gamer who shouldn't be ruining a fluff-based game. And to be honest, those responses got to me a bit, so I nearly didn't make this video. But it's not about me. It's about making sure that Necron players everywhere have as much information available to them as possible. So hopefully this video can be useful to you in some small way, and you're not going to go away thinking that I am a terrible person for using numbers. To be honest, I haven't actually been able to play a game in a really long time, and I've never even been to a Warhammer tournament, so this is just sort of an advice basis on which you can build your armies in the future. But anyway, let's get back to the matter at hand. Based on the points values seen here, there's no contention in which unit is more survivable for the points put into it. The Lychguard with dispersion shields easily storm home with this round. Tactics within the Warhammer 40k gaming landscape allow for numerous possibilities thanks to intense army customization, but ultimately these units tend to fill kind of specific roles. Based on the rapid mobility of the Praetorians, these minis are excellent for pushing into enemy deployment zones, or getting behind any weaker frontline units and taking out more substantial HQ options. One of the biggest limitations is a fairly low strength stat for a unit of this type, so we won't really want to use them for wiping out vehicles or larger enemy creatures. Your ranged weapon options in the army should cover these for you. Praetorians attempt to fill a niche slot of speedy close combat units, but are kind of outclassed by wraiths. They were in the old edition, and I expect that they will be in the new one, although I haven't had the chance to run some numbers. In any format where shooting is king, units like this will struggle. However, they are a lot of fun to field and grant some quite intimidating attack power. Plus, they're great at grabbing faraway objectives, so they help to fill a fast-moving style army with a little extra potency and some excellent fluff, if that's what you're after. Lychguard are a classic, slow-moving bodyguard unit. In general, these guys won't be pushing your frontline forward, instead they allow steady movement with your overlord onto a key objective that is already in your half. There are some neat tricks to be had with Xandrek and Oberon, but this video is more about standard tactics than cool tricks, and we've already used up far too much time just talking about the basics. The Guardian Protocol's ability grants this unit that additional ability to keep things going, which is a really nice addition. Plus, Lychguard are Dynasty members, so rerolls remain available to you, and Lychguard really fill out a well-defined role, much better than Praetorians managed to do. That's not to say that Triarch's finest aren't a good unit. They provide significant damage output and board coverage, as we've already seen. They just need to be used carefully, and in a way that doesn't often get seen in the game. But new and unusual methods can sometimes grant you victory, so although they're not the typical option, I'd still choose Praetorians over Lychguard. The choice, as always, up to you. I hope that the information which I provided can help you in making your decision, because once you glue down those body parts, there's no real way of going back. Take a few moments to work out what your army needs, and if these units will provide it. And if you still can't decide, you can always buy both kits. Thanks for watching this video. I'd love if you could leave a like to let me know if you've enjoyed this or found it helpful at all. If there's anything you'd like to find out, then please leave a comment, and I'll try to answer any questions and put any updates in the description, because there are bound to be miscalculations in here and I want to get everything sorted out for you guys. I'd also love to hear your stories and what you'd like to see in the next video from the channel. Well, that's all I've got for you today. It's goodbye from me, good luck from the Star Gods, and good gaming for the future.